Hello, Oakville. Happy Canada Day. Welcome. We are so glad that you decided to spend this national holiday with your community. We are very glad that you joined us. We are making butter tarts. So we are going to be joined by Chef Laura Strath. If you didn't know it, Chef Laura Strath actually leads us every Thursday in a free cooking program at 5:30. A couple weeks ago, we asked the participants what they thought something Canadiana would be to make, and they said butter tarts. So tonight, we are going to be making butter tarts with our local chef, Laura Strath. Before we begin, I hope everyone enjoys a lovely Canada Day and they stay safe in our community of the town of Oakville. I think it's important that today and this year, we really acknowledge the contributions of our Indigenous community members. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the lands of the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaron to the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. We are gathered here today in Queen Elizabeth Park Community Center. These are treaty lands. We are in solidarity with our Indigenous brothers and sisters to honor and respect the four directions, lands, plants, waters, animals, and ancestors that walked before us, and all of the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We acknowledge and thank Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for being stewards of this traditional land. It's important for us to notice that, especially this year, that each of us owes a great deal of time and attention to understanding the history of Indigenous peoples. Over the past few weeks, we have seen our local Indigenous community members express tremendous grace in terms of helping us all navigate the pain of what we are learning about the history of Indian residential schools here in Canada. And I just want to take a moment to thank those who are living in Oakville or in the Halton area for being so gracious and kind and allowing us as Canadians or Oakville residents the opportunity to heal with you. I know that this information and news has been difficult, but we are so grateful that we've been welcomed to share that grief. And we know that we can't possibly understand, but I really hope, and we've really seen over the past few weeks, that I really hope Oakville residents are ready to try to start understanding and learning. I hope that everyone joining us today understands that the town does offer programs that help our capacity and knowledge around Indigenous culture and community history. You can visit any of the town website to learn more about Indigenous culture and community. You can join us for some of our free virtual programs, or you can watch past free virtual programs on the Town of Oakville's YouTube page. But that's enough from me. Chef Laura Strath, I'm going to unspotlight myself, and it's all you. Please teach the town of Oakville how to make lovely butter tarts.
Thanks, Daniel. Welcome, everyone. Happy Canada Day. So when we had taken a little poll, like Daniel had said, butter tarts was definitely top on the list. So that's what we are going to be making today. So we are going to start out with our pastry. This needs to chill a little bit before we can roll it out. So what I've got here is I have got some all-purpose flour. So I'm just doing a half batch of the dough just because I've already quickly made one up and I have it chilling in the fridge. So I've got 1 and just under a quarter cup of all-purpose flour. I've put in just under half a teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and I'm going to be putting in half a cup of unsalted butter. So the reason we use unsalted butter is just so that we can control how much salt is actually going into the recipe. The key here is to make sure that your butter is quite cold, and we're going to just kind of break it up a little bit with our fingers. And then we're going to incorporate it with the flour. So you can do this in a food processor, or you can just quickly do this by hand. And what we're doing is we're just coating the butter pieces. We're breaking them apart with our thumbs and our fingers, and we want them to be about the size of peas. So the reason we use cold butter is because once you roll out your dough and then you have it into the oven, once it starts baking, those butter pieces are going to melt and leave pockets. And that's what makes a nice flaky crust. Okay. So I'm just going to continue to break up my butter.
Chef Nora,
Yes.
you in your recipe it says cake and pastry flour. Will it make a difference?
It does not, Marilyn, but a really good question. You can use cake and pastry flour if you have it on hand, but most of us usually just have all-purpose, so we'll just go with all-purpose. Cake and pastry actually is easy to make at home if you are wanting to try it. It's basically all-purpose flour. You take out about I don't know, a quarter of a cup, and then you put in about 3 tablespoons of cornstarch.
Oh.
And then you can sift that together, and then you have a cake and pastry flour.
How much cornstarch? I'm going to write that down. Hold on a second. I'm going to get a pencil. Okay, so that was, you have how much regular flour?
So if it's 1 cup of flour, Marilyn,
Yep.
just take out, I would say, like even just maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons and just substitute it with cornstarch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, easy breezy. Okay. And then at the step of, we've got our butter is incorporated into small pieces. And then I'm going to be adding my cold water. And in the recipe, it does call for a tablespoon of lemon juice or white vinegar. You can add that in. It's in there because a lot of people think that it will tenderize your pastry dough. Because it's such a small amount, though, it doesn't. It's really not needed, but some people swear by it, so I do put it in there just in case some people prefer to put that in. I did not put it in mine. So I'm just mixing here. I'm just doing some gentle kneading. So again, just using this part of your hand, the heel of your hand, and you're just pushing your dough in, collecting some of these little crumbs, and then you're just bringing your dough back. Okay, so you're just gonna do this until you've collected all the little bits in the bottom of your bowl. It will be a little bit shaggy, okay, but it looks pretty good. So I'm just going to use my dough just to pick up any extra little bits that I have. So it should look like this. So you can still see when you break it apart, still nice and flaky, okay. So I'm going to get a piece of saran wrap, and I'm going to put that in some saran wrap or beeswax wrap, whatever you have on hand. Okay. There we go. And I'm just going to put my dough in there.
I can see some of our guests sharing their camera. It looks like someone is baking outside. I love that.
Oh, that's amazing. It's a gorgeous night out there. All right, then I'm going to just use the heel of my hand. I'm just going to press my dough out. I'm just going to flatten a bit because that will actually allow it to cool faster. And then when you're getting ready to roll it out, it will just be a little bit easier as well because you won't have such a thick piece of dough. Okay, and then we're just going to go put that right into the fridge.
And now with the magic of television.
That's right. Well, we'll work on our food. Okay, I'm just going to wipe off my hands here. So while that is chilling, we can actually kind of get started a little bit on toasting our pecans for our tarts. You don't have to use pecans. I know it was the big debate too about whether or not to put raisins or no raisins. So tonight we are not going to be putting raisins in, but we will be using some pecans. And you can also put in chocolate chips if you like. So we have a little bit of both. So we'll just get started. I find when you have nuts in any kind of recipe, I prefer just to lightly toast them. It just really helps to bring out the flavor. So we're just gonna turn our stove on just to medium. You could also do this in the oven as well. I like just to do it on the stovetop. I find it pretty quick and easy. Just putting the nuts right in there. And then we'll just keep an eye on them. You'll be able to smell them. The oils are gonna start to be released. And then they have that wonderful smell.
No, I'm sorry, Chef. I burnt mine.
Oh, did you burn yours? Oh, no.
It didn't take long. I have to really watch
Yes, it doesn't take long. That's a good reminder, Marilyn. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so be careful, watch them.
All right. So I'm going to very diligently watch mine now. All right. Even if you wanted to spice up your butter tarts, you can actually add some spice to your pecans or walnuts or whatever you're using by adding a little bit of cayenne pepper. Whoops. That's a little bit fun. I'm just going to get a cutting board here. So when you're using a cutting board at home, don't forget to put a wet cloth underneath your cutting board just so that it stays nice and stable on your work surface. And I'm just going to lightly, roughly chop my pecans once they come out, just because I think today we'll do some mini, butter tarts. I think they refer to them as 2-bite, but I think in my case, I think it's just a 1-bite. So I can start to smell my pecans. Okay, just give those a minute or two. And again, you can do this in the oven if you like. The butter tarts will go into a preheated 400-degree oven. Okay, so if you haven't done that yet, make sure you preheat your oven. They don't take very long to bake either, so that's kind of a nice bonus. All right. So lots of different options for fillings for sure.
So a question from the chat, Chef. Why do we roast the pecans? I know you mentioned that you think they bring the flavor out a little bit.
They do. So when you're heating up nuts, they do release a little bit of their oil, and it just really helps to enhance the flavor when you toast your nuts.
Do they get any softer from roasting?
They initially do, and then they cool down, and then they are about this. They're the same.
Okay.
The same texture. Okay, so these ones are almost ready. I can see I'm starting to get a little bit of browning. I'm just going to turn off my heat. Okay, I'm just going to put them right here on my cutting board. Okay, so I'm just going to use my knife and I'm just going to do a rough chop. If you're doing full-size full-size butter tarts, you don't need to do a rough chop. You can just leave them as is, and then you can place them right into the bottoms of your tarts. But I find with the minis, you can get more in there if they're chopped up a little bit.
So for those of you who are joining us new, we are making butter tarts with Chef Laura Strath. You will hear us refer to this as a Canada Day celebration because we are recording tonight's episode to share with the town of Oakville on Canada Day. So we asked everyone what they thought the most Canadiana dessert we could make was, and beaver tails lost, and butter tarts won. So thank you so much for joining us. You don't have to check your calendar. It is not Canada Day, but we are celebrating today.
Okay. All right. Is everyone doing okay? All right. Okay, so let's get started on maybe working our dough. And then that way we can have the tarts chilling in the fridge while we're making our filling. Okay. All right. So So you'll need a little bit of flour for dusting. I'm just gonna make sure that my counter is nice and dry. Okay, and I'm just gonna lightly flour my surface. And then I have my chilled dough. So when you are making a pie dough, if you pull it out of the fridge and you're like, this is rock hard, you can warm it up like this a little bit with your hands. The heat from your hands will actually help speed along that process.
Chef, was that the dough that went into the fridge, or was this a new dough?
This is the dough that I had previously done.
So how long should the dough be resting in the fridge?
Usually to relax the gluten, you'll need at least a good 30 minutes.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna put that there. I'm just gonna lightly dust the top. And then I've got my rolling pin here. So this is a nice tapered pin. I really like to use these types of pins. It's also known as a French pin. So when you are rolling out your dough, you want to make sure that you're constantly moving it on your work surface to make sure it's not sticking. And then I'm just applying pressure with my hands here while I'm rolling. So what I like to do is even for those that are new to this, so basically you can start in the center and then use pressure, and then you can roll from the middle out to the edges, okay? And then give your dough a turn, and then you do the same. So in the middle, applying pressure from the middle out to the edge. Again, a turn, in the middle, pressure, out to the edge. And then you can continue doing that until you've got a nice circle. So this one, we don't want our dough to be too thin. We want it to support that gooey goodness. So we're gonna have it a little bit thicker than you would a regular pie. So let me show you. So maybe about this thick here. Can you guys see that okay?
Looks like a little thinner than 1/4 of an inch.
Yep. That's perfect. All right. Okay, so let's see here. So when you are making the butter tarts, you'll want to have a cutter. I'm just going to trial this one because I'm not sure the sizing here. So I'm just going to try this size here. So when you put it into your muffin cup, then you want it to actually be raised a little bit higher than your cup. So this one's just a tiny bit too small. So let me try this one. And if you don't have little cutters like this, you can also just use a cup. So let's try this one. So you're just going to be pressing it down. This one looks good. Into your muffin liner, okay? All right, so this is a good size. So I'm just gonna quickly take that one out for a second. And then I'm going just to grab some spray. Okay, so I just have a little bit of Pam spray, and I'm just gonna give this a light spray, okay? And we know that this size works, so that's good. And we have the nice characteristic edges here. And then you can kind of see that it is coming up over the lip of the cavity. Okay. So when you've got your dough in here, you're just going to use your finger just to gently press to make sure that all the corners are in there, and then you can continue on. Okay, so again, I like just to kind of give it a little bit of a gentle push like this. You don't want to push too hard with your dough because then it's going to tear. Okay, And the whole point is that these look nice and rustic, so they don't have to be perfect. The nice thing about this recipe too is that you can pre-do this step and then just have these resting in the fridge. Okay. When you're cutting your dough as well, just make sure that you are cutting as close to the other cutouts as you can. That way you don't have to rework your dough as much. Makes it a little bit tougher. These pecans smell so delicious.
So I know that folks at home who are using the recipe we posted online, they may not be getting as many or less pecans, less butter tarts, because I believe we're making really mini ones in the community kitchen today, right?
Yes. You could use a regular size muffin muffin container or oh my goodness, pan. But I do like these little mini ones. I don't feel as bad when I eat 2 or 3. Okay, so then we just continue on. Make sure you keep your little piece of saran wrap that you had your dough wrapped into. We can reuse that. Okay. There we go. So this part's a little bit time consuming, but again, you can do this ahead of time. It's definitely worth the effort. Let's see. I'm just going to roll this out a tiny bit more so I can get one more circle. Alright. There we go. This makes it a little bit easier too when your dough's a little bit on the chilled side. Okay. So with the dough we have left over, you're just going to regroup it. Okay, and then you can just kind of just put it back into a ball. And then I'm just going to give it a little knead just to incorporate all the bits. And then I'm going to put it back in my saran wrap. I'm just going to dust a little flour on there. It's pretty sticky. Okay, I'm going to put it back in my saran wrap, and then I'm just going to give it another little press, just like we did with our other dough. And then I'm going to put it back in the fridge so that it can rest, and then we'll be able to re-roll. Thank you. All right. These look really good. How's everyone doing there, okay? Okay. Just gonna put this in the fridge just to chill while we are doing our, oh, thank you, while we are making our filling. So remember, if you have flour on your work surface, you use a scraper or a dry cloth to get that flour off, and then you can follow with a wet cloth. Okay, so for the filling, we are going to use maple syrup. In a lot of recipes, that actually calls for corn syrup, but because it is Canada Day, we are going to use some nice maple syrup. All right. So what we're going to be doing is we will be measuring out a half a cup of butter. So I just have these handy sticks that are pre-measured. We're just going to put that into our pot. Oops. Thank you.
So one of those sticks is a half cup?
Yep, so it's
Perfect.
pretty handy. They come in a box, and there's 4 sticks, so each one being half of a cup. So then you get a full pound of butter. Okay, so then we've got our butter and then we've got our brown sugar. Okay, so we've got 1 cup of brown sugar and we're gonna put that in with our butter.
And you're adding this into a cold pot, like not a hot pot?
Yep, just into a nice cold pot. And we're gonna turn the meat onto medium heat. And then just make sure that you keep a close eye on this. So you're just gonna give this, keep stirring it until this butter melts, and then your mixture will become nice and bubbly. And then we are going to take it off heat. I find the brown sugar cooks pretty quickly. If you wanted to, you could break up your butter a little bit more. I do like the flavor a little bit better too with the brown sugar, because you have the molasses present in the brown sugar.
Would people traditionally just use white sugar?
I think a lot of recipes will call for a mixture of brown and white.
Okay.
You can see this actually melts pretty quickly. So this isn't the time to just wander off and quickly check your email while this is cooking on the stove. You want to make sure that you give this a stir at all times so that you don't burn your sugar. So what we're doing here is we're just, while we're incorporating the butter into the sugar, we're breaking down and melting those sugar granules so that when we do have the filling, you're not having that that feeling of crystals on your palate. I've just got a few more lumps in here. I'm just going to cook those out a little bit. So I'm going to turn off my heat so you can see it's nice and smooth. You'll be able to smell that it has that caramelized smell. Okay. All right, so I've got that off heat. I'm just going to leave that there for a minute or two while we work on the other components of our filling. All right, so I'm just going to actually measure everything. I've got a fairly large measuring cup here, so I'm just going to put everything in here, and then I'll be able to just pour it into our hot mixture. So we've got some maple syrup here, so I'm going to add in a half a cup. Here we go. And then I'm going to add in 2 large eggs. Okay. And then I've got a little bit of salt. So about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just going to guesstimate. I've done that a lot of times. And then we're going to put in about a tablespoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice, okay? So if you want to, you can do this in a separate bowl. If you have a little strainer, great. You can definitely use that. But sometimes I just use my hand. Oops. And then I have the seeds that stay into my hand while the juice goes into the bowl. So we need about a tablespoon. All right. I think that looks pretty good. I got one little seed in there. Take that out. I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon. Okay. Then we're just going to mix this up with a little spatula just to make sure that we're incorporating all of our wet ingredients. And then we're gonna temper our mess. And I'll show you what that means.
Hi, Chef Laura, I'm a little behind. I just got the eggs in there. Did you put lemon juice in with the eggs?
I did.
Okay.
In with the egg mixture is the maple syrup,
Oh,
the salt, and the lemon juice.
okay, thank you.
No worries. And the vanilla. All right. Okay, so at this point, if you were to have this on the stove and it was hot, 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 basically what would happen is that you would cook your eggs as soon as the hot mixture hit this liquid mixture, okay? So what you're gonna do is we are going to stir, and then we are going to very slowly pour in our egg mixture. So while it's hitting the hot sugar butter mixture, we're stirring continuously so that the eggs don't cook upon contact.
Chef, I'm not sure if you can hear me while whisking, but how would you know if your eggs were cooking on contact? What would you see?
It would be curdled. Yeah, you'd see that. It looks like scrambled eggs. So if that does happen, you can always use a strainer and strain your mix. Yeah, you'd have floating white bits in there. So we've got a nice smooth mix here. Okay, and then I'm actually going to use this and I'm going to pour it right back into my measuring cup. Okay. And then that way it will be really easy for us to pour into our tarts afterwards. And saves us some dishes too.
Chef, do you temper it with the heat on?
Sorry, Marilyn?
Do you temper it with the heat on, or
No.
do you turn the heat off?
Heat should be off.
Oh, off, okay.
Yeah, and then you just put it on a different burner if you're on an electric range.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
This is my whisk.
All right, so then we'll get ready to fill up our tray. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so this is the tray that we had previously started. So we've got, our dough is nice and chilled here. So this is where you would put in your fillings, okay? So we'll put some pecans in some, and we'll try some with some chocolate chips. I like lots of nuts in mine, so I'm going to try and fill mine as much as I can. Here we go. So we'll do a couple here with pecans, or with raisins, or with chocolate chips, whatever you want. Okay, here we go. And we'll do some with chocolate chips. Or you could do both if you wanted. Okay, so when you are filling your butter tarts, you're going to fill, I would say, about 3/4 of the way. Okay. It's nice because you do have that little bit of the overhang that it's not going to bubble over onto your tray. So you're going to fill them up about 3/4 full, because the mixture will bubble. You've got your eggs in there. It will puff up a bit. Okay. So then they still have a little bit of room there. Okay, so we're gonna go put this in the oven at 400 degrees for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna reduce our oven temperature. So 400 degrees for 10 minutes, and then we will be reducing the temperature, okay, to 375 degrees. Okay, so I'm gonna put on my timer because I tend to forget. Let's try this one. All right, so that's set. So then while we are waiting for those ones in the oven, then we can actually start again on our other dough. Okay, so we can go through it again. The nice thing about the minis too is they take a little bit less time to bake. So I know we've got our first initial 10 minutes, and then it calls for maybe another 10, 15 minutes, but we'll do an eye check maybe around 8 minutes or so. Okay, so this is the dough that we've just had resting for about 10, 15 minutes. So let's give this one a go. So remember to save all your dough scraps too. You can use them for a quiche. So just lightly flour. And then we're just rolling, nice gentle pressure. You'll find if your dough was too cold, then you might start to get like big splits. That's okay, you can just kind of push them together with your fingers. Okay. This is a really great recipe. The dough rolls really nicely. And again, just making sure that you can move your dough on your table. If you can't, then just get a little bit more flour under there. Okay.
So, Chef, I know you're an Oakville resident. What are you doing this year for Canada Day?
I'm not sure. I guess it all just depends on what we're allowed to do. But we're actually in a really great neighborhood where there's lots of families, and I know at our local school there's some parents that very kindly give off fireworks that we can see from our house. So we tend to sit on the front porch and watch some fireworks. Maybe do some sparklers. That's about it.
That's about free fireworks? That sounds awesome.
It's good. Yeah, we used to go down to Brawny. That's
course.
usually what we do, but
Yeah, I think everyone's looking forward to, I know I get to work closely with our events team, and everyone is keenly looking forward to the day where we can do things like that.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. The kids really enjoy it too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's about it. Hopefully we have some good weather all weekend. It's nice when it's a long weekend and we've got nice weather.
And if you're listening and you are planning on doing Canada Day fireworks, remember, there are dogs in the neighborhood. Try to get your fireworks off in that small window before dogs start to slip into madness and right after kids fall asleep. And also, I often hear people shooting fireworks off the day or the day before or the day after. I got a little wiener dog at home. Let's keep it to one night.
Oh, you don't like the 3 days in a row, Daniel?
Of
Fireworks?
Yeah, like well, he's a little chunky, but what should be a 10-pound dog hiding under the bed? No.
So funny. All right, so again, when you are cutting your rounds, just make sure that you cut as close as you can to your other cutouts. That way you're not, you're getting the most out of your dough. So you're not gonna be cutting random circles. You're just gonna be cutting them nice and close together, and then you have a lot less wastage here. All right. So let's do this one again. See, these are pretty simple.
That's a good question from the chat. Are you able to freeze any leftover sauce?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It won't actually fully freeze because there's so much sugar. But yeah, just put it in a container and label it. Absolutely. And these can actually go in the freezer, probably for a good couple weeks, I'd say, or even up to 1 to 2 months. they don't really last that long at my house, so we just tend to eat them. Okay. All right, so we're gonna give these a little bit of a spray. That way they don't stick in the pan. And again, I'm just using my thumbs and my fingers, and I'm just kind of making a little indent here, so it's a little bit easier to put right into the pan. There we go. And again, just remembering just the gentle push to make sure that all the sides are in. So again, just kind of doing a little gentle pre-molding. And remembering that we do want it to come up over the top. Here we go. Once you do these a few times, it gets to be pretty quick.
Mhm.
Okay. And the bigger ones would be just the same. Just using a bigger cutter, so you'd probably need something around the size of 4.5 inches. And if you don't have cutters at home, again, just using a glass or a jar will do the trick. Okay.
Jeff, I got a message here. So do you know where butter tarts originated?
That is a good question. I want to say it was in Quebec.
Okay.
And I believe it was in the 1600s, but I could be very wrong there. I do remember that little tidbit from somewhere, but I'm not 100% on that fun fact.
You know what? I'm on it.
Thank
I
you.
will search. So now a quick Google search. I don't want to affirm that this is the correct information. I don't know, but I opened up a link called Butter Tart Culture in Ontario.
Oh,
So
wow.
clearly we know these people are serious about butter tarts, which is excellent.
That is pretty serious.
I love the idea of that there's butter tart culture. All right, so it looks like the earliest published recipe of the butter tart was actually from Barrie, Ontario, which was
Oh,
published in the Women's Auxiliary of the Royal Victoria Hospital Cookbook.
wow. I was way off.
Well, I mean, that's just when it was first published. So,
Does it have a recipe there, Daniel?
of what that butter tart looked like?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think you're pushing it. I don't see a link there. I'm sure I could find it. I'll share it with you outside of the program. We can see how
Okay.
similar your...
Yeah, I'm interested. All right.
Oh, no, I have it. Okay.
I'm just
So,
going to quickly roll out one more too, Daniel, while you're
please, yeah.
that out.
So it looks like it's prepared pastry,
Mm-hmm.
lightly packed brown sugar, maple syrup, butter, an egg, vanilla, salt, and this one says optional raisins. So it is quite...
Very good.
So I guess we should start giving our thanks to the Women's Auxiliary Unit of the Royal Victoria Hospital Cookbook. Thank you, ladies, for tonight's
Wow.
recipe.
Nice. Oh, okay, there's
So
our,
that buzzer sets off a great question. So how long do we cook the mini tart? So I think we said 10 minutes at 400 and...
and now we're going to reduce the temperature of the oven to 375 degrees. And then we're going to put our timer on for about 8 minutes instead of the 10 or 15, just because they are a smaller mass. They're not going to take as long to cook.
Okay, Chef Laura, I'm not doing mini, I'm doing regular ones. So should I leave them longer than 10 minutes?
Yeah, you know what, Marilyn, put your timer on for 10 minutes to do a check, and then if you need more baking time, you can add 5 minutes.
For the first 10 minutes, right?
Have you done the first 10 minutes at 400?
I've got 3 minutes to go.
Okay, so after that, turn it to 375 and then put your timer on again for 10 minutes.
Okay, even though they're the bigger ones.
Even though they're the bigger ones, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so I'm noting that for those who are joining us live, it has passed our usual program end time. As I mentioned at the start of the program, we are filming tonight's episode to share for Canada Day celebration. So we are going a little bit longer this evening. If you have to go, that's quite all right. I'm sure you can watch the recorded version of how to finish up. But if you're going to join us, please feel free to ride it out. So we are, I guess, another 10 minutes at 375 of our butter tarts in the oven.
That's right. So we can fill these ones while we're waiting. And it's always better to have your timer a little bit less so that you can check, because you can always put them back in. But there's not much you can do if you've overcooked them. All right, so let's put some chocolate chips in here. I really actually like chocolate chips in butter tarts.
Really?
They are good.
I would never think to put chocolate chips in butter tarts.
They're really nice, especially with the nuts.
Okay.
Do they, I'm assuming they melt into the mixture, right?
They do. Maybe I'll do some that are both.
I guess you can't have too much of a good thing when it comes to butter tarts.
And they're minis too, right? So moderation. All right. Here we go. I'll do some with both. And again, we're just going to fill up with our mixture here, just to 3/4. And then you'll know that these are done because the pie dough will be nice and golden, and the filling will be a little bit springy to the touch. So when you are checking, those are the things that you're going to want to look for. Remember, once I made the mistake of overfilling these to the top and had a bit of a mess in my oven. It's always a good excuse to clean it, right?
Yeah, that baked on sugar must have been tough to clean off the pan too.
Oh, it was a little bit. Better to get it while it's hot though. All right, we're gonna put these in the oven. Our other tarts are looking good. We still have a few more minutes, about 5 more minutes. Now, when you are making them and you do have this extra mix, that was a really good question from earlier, you can freeze this and it won't freeze solid. So just put it in the fridge for a few hours and then you can make another batch. Okay. Pretty simple. And again, you can make your shells ahead of time. And does anybody have any questions of anything we've done so far?
I guess this is a good time to note, Chef, that if folks who are watching this at home during Canada Day, if they want to share their finished product, they can send photos of their completed butter tarts to public.art@oakville.ca, public.art@oakville.ca. Those joining us live can, as always, share photos of our of their finished product. And what I try to do is add them to our posting to our YouTube page. So all free town virtual programs are uploaded to YouTube. And anytime anyone sends me a picture of what they've created along with the program, I always attach it to the end of the video. So folks at home can see what other residents and other neighbors in their community are up to.
Perfect. And Daniel, should we talk about maybe next week?
Yes, sure. We can talk about next week. So I know by the time this airs, it'll be past Canada Day. But next week, Chef, it is our last week of the spring session. What are we making?
Well, strawberries are in season and they are gorgeous. So we are going to make something with strawberries. So I think what we're going to make is a cornmeal pancake, and we're going to layer that with fresh strawberry sauce and some ricotta cheese. And then maybe we'll make a nice sauce too to go on the plate.
This is a tough program to host when you have celiac disease. All these delicious gluten-filled treats.
Aw.
So thank you. I can see so many of you sharing images of your kitchens from home. We always chat about that after the program, that it's so nice to see that people are cooking. So thank you for doing that.
That's good. I'm just gonna go give a quick eye check on my tarts.
Yeah, please. So I guess, as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a good time to give a plug for other town services. So in addition to offering free virtual programs, the town does offer many registered virtual programs. So if you're looking for registered fitness activities or art classes, those are certainly available. You can visit at oakville.ca. The other thing I would encourage folks to do is regularly visit the town's website, because we are beginning to introduce in-person services like our summer camps. So obviously, like everyone, we wait for the updates and we wait for the information of what we're allowed to do, and then we try to respond as quickly as possible to be able to get those services back to residents. So definitely, if you haven't already, follow the town on your social media feeds, and we really can't wait to start doing more community activities and events with you all in person. I assure you, much like you've missed everyone through your family and your work, we too have missed being able to share everything we love to do with the community and our neighbors. How's the butter tarts looking, Chef?
They're looking really good. We've got one more minute.
Okay, perfect.
Pull them out for you to see. A
You
nice,
know, we should have made ice cream tonight as like a,
that was poor planning.
that would have been a perfect time filler. Very easy and delicious.
That is a good recipe. But even for those that have some dairy sensitivities, you can always make your ice cream with coconut milk, full fat coconut milk. And you can still do the no churn type ice cream with the coconut milk. It's lovely.
Anyone who's joining us live want to share any of their Canada Day plans? I'm sure there will be a lot of patios in Oakville being accessed. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention my favorites.
Do you have patios open on your streets in Oakville?
Do we have patios open on our streets in Oakville? I think many restaurants have opted to take advantage of our patio program this summer. Yeah, so if you haven't already in the past weekends, you can certainly start to look at some of the local restaurants and accessing their patios. The only thing I would recommend is making a reservation. My understanding is that patios across Ontario have been almost as popular as the golf courses, which is something I thought I would never say.
It's nice
I'm
to
calling from Toronto, and they're all over the streets.
Oh yeah, yeah. I certainly know that that past Thursday there was a lot of patios in Toronto that opened right at midnight to lines of people.
Okay, does anybody have theirs out of the oven yet? I'll just kind of show you what to look for here. So we've got nice golden brown pastry. You should be able to move your tart in your butter, in your pan. Okay, just like this. Okay, just give them a little twirl just to make sure they're not stuck. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna cool them down in your pan for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then you can pop them out, okay? But you'll be able to see, here, let's see. They're a bit hot, but I'll do my best here. So they'll be nice and golden brown on the bottom. Okay, so nice and golden brown. And then you can actually see a little bit of the flakiness in the crust. I don't know if you can see that.
They look lovely, Laura.
Oh, thank you. They smell lovely too. I can't wait to have one. But
Well,
yeah.
I suppose we can allow you to go do that, chef.
Oh,
They
no,
look
that's
good
nice.
too, Mary Ellen.
Oh, Mary Ellen, that looks
They
wonderful.
look great.
Nice. I like
Oh.
that tray.
How quickly will they cool down so that you can eat them?
Francis, I would give them a good 10 minutes or so. They're still going to be pretty warm, but you can cut them in half and then let them cool that way too. Just be careful because it is sugar. It will burn.
Be a tough 10 minutes.
It's a tough 10 minutes. So it's like when bread comes out of the oven too, right? You want to dig in right away.
All right, well, I will stop recording for all of us joining our live virtual program. Thank you so much for joining us on this Canada Day 2021. I know this Canada Day is different, but I hope you can enjoy the fact that everyone is in this together, trying to improve our country, improve time with our family, and enjoy this small time we have off work before we go into the dead heat of the Canadian summer. Thank you all for being here, and yeah, thank you for showing interest and participating in community activities with the town of Oakville. I appreciate you all being here. Have a lovely, lovely holiday.
Thank you.